Yo,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of the Bow and Aaron podcast.
episode 6. That's almost 33% of the way
Exactly.
until we never have to do one again.
XD.
XD.
So, what do you think about what do you think about this Russia and Ukraine stuff, man?
Dude, I just had a guy at work ask me about that yesterday, and I don't know how I feel about it. I think, at face value, it seems like Ukraine is more right than Russia. Um, I I know there's also this big kind of uproar recently where people are like, "Oh, well, this is all Trump's fault because he withheld money from Ukraine." I wasn't even aware that was why they impeached him the first time because
Well,
I
that's
thought
not
that
really the reason.
yeah,
It's because of that phone call is technically the reason. But also, it goes back even further than that because under the Obama administration, we're like, yo, like get rid of all your nukes and we'll help you out if you ever need help. And then Ukraine was like, all right, because they had 5,000 nuclear warheads, and then
yeah.
they signed
So
that deal and we left them hanging out. Like that's when it really started. Was in 2014. Well, it really started like when Ukraine was got independent in like the 90s. That's when, and like Russia was always like, we don't want that to happen. Like whatever. So that's when it really started, and then it's just been progressively like every administration has just been doing stuff that makes it easier for Ukraine or Russia to invade, basically.
yeah, so why does Putin want to invade Ukraine right now? Because from what I understand, and this again, like the why I'm hesitant to make even opinions based on what I know right now is because the West will spin things one way and the East will spin things one way, so you're never gonna get the full story. And I
Well,
feel
he
more
wants to take
inclined.
over, like at the very like face historical value. He wants to take over Ukraine because like every leader of Russia has always wanted to take over Ukraine, basically.
Mm.
But
But they're in the
if you,
Russian media, they're portraying it like he's liberating them from some
I mean,
dictatorship.
of course they are. That's that. Why would they not say that? But the other thing is, so that's like if you take it at like very face historical value. If you think Putin is evil, though, it's because he wants to not stop at Ukraine, but go through like all the Baltic states and keep going.
Yeah, so
So,
why was Putin getting pissed off at the prospect of like Finland or some of those Nordic states joining NATO? He said
because
if
then we can put
Finland
troops there and like challenge his authority, or we as in the United States can. That's why.
gotcha.
It's because
I see.
he wants to take over as much shit as possible. Well, probably bare minimum, he wants to take over Ukraine.
Hmm.
That's kind of like how I'm seeing it right now. And obviously, like the more NATO power that's in that area, the more challenge it is to his authority. So
So what was the initial talk? And I don't know if this has developed any further, but it seemed like people were criticizing the Western response to all of this, saying the sanctions weren't harsh enough, and there was something to do with SWIFT, and nobody was like threatening. I think it's some kind of international financial
yeah,
organization.
basically Swift is like some like wire transfer money protocol thing, and like shutting it down would like severely cripple like money going in and out of Russia, but it also severely cripple like the whole supply chain that Russia's
Civilians, right?
involved in. So it's like it's kind of like a air quotes nuclear option, because if we fuck over Russia like that and like stop buying oil from them, like we're gonna get pissed off because gas is gonna be like 5.75 a gallon. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's like the nuclear option. And what we're doing right now is just kind of like a slap on the wrist option. So,
I
but yeah,
see.
that people were getting pissed off about that because like those sanctions was like actually hurt Russia like critically, but it also has repercussions for the people that do it because the whole like world economy is so like connected now.
So is there anyone like supporting Russia in this? Is China? I think I saw the initial response from China was like, "We hope this conflict can be settled in peace."
Yeah, so basically from what I'm seeing, China is kind of just watching. They're not planning on stopping Russia probably, but they want to see how everybody treats this because they want to do the same thing to Taiwan. So
Yeah.
if they see like the United States puts down the nuclear option of like not buying oil, blah 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 in Russia, then that's like a severe like deterrent for China to try to annex Taiwan. But if they see it like we're doing now, or it's just like slap them on the wrist and whatever, then that just emboldens China further.
What
So,
a weird world we live in.
and the like analogy of the oil in Russia is we sell a ton of our like grains and wheats to China apparently. So like we could literally starve China out. But obviously we get a lot of commodities from China too, so it's kind of like we're in bed with each other and it's just like it's just yeah, it's an interesting situation.
Certainly an interesting situation. So
But
you think,
go
what do
ahead.
you think? How do you think this is gonna end then? Ukraine's gonna be occupied, and then what happens?
I think Russia's going to take over Ukraine within the month. I think it's just there's just too much. Russia just has too much like overwhelming military power. It's going to be
So
bloody. It's going to be bloody and ugly though. It's going to be a
when should
rough
I
month.
start buying stocks? That's the question.
I mean, disclaimer, I am not your investment advisor and any investments you make based on this podcast are purely for entertainment purposes, but I would say probably just slow buy now, slow buy a
Yeah,
couple weeks from now. Like basically, like when you're investing, you always want to hedge. Well, it depends on what your strategy is, but my strategy usually is like pretty conservative. So I'll just buy stocks in little chunks, and then that way you can kind of arbitrage your losses or wins over like a wider like what's the word I'm looking for, like diagram of the market, or it's like you're not you're not winning big, but you're not losing big either. You're kind of just
yeah.
like floating up a little bit. That's kind of how I do it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I just wanna seize the opportunity to buy cheap stock.
But let's say if we put in those real sanctions, and everything starts going to shit, then you would wait a little bit, wait for the market to bottom out, keep waiting, and then buy, like
Yeah.
at the most panicked time, because that's like the optimal time to buy. Like if we're looking back to like when all the pandemic lockdowns started, uh, it was like the third week of March, I think. Like the market started dropping precipitously like the first week of March, and then it just started to go lower and lower and lower, and then like I think it bottomed out like the third or fourth week of March. So
So what do you think the global implications for Russia are gonna be after this is all said and done?
I really
Is
don't know,
everyone just
man. It
gonna kind of
depends.
forget about it, or
It depends on if they stop at Ukraine. If they stop at Ukraine, like we're probably not going to do anything. But if they go further east or if they go further west or whatever, then World War III starts. So it really depends on Russia. Russia's like drive in the driver's seat right now, as far as how everybody else thinks of them.
yeah, that seems
And
logical.
also the other thing we haven't touched on is like the cyber part.
Oh yeah, Anonymous launching war against Russia, dude.
Like we don't know Russia's full cyber offensive warfare too. I think that's another reason why we haven't like put the slap down sanctions on them, because we don't know what Russia can do to the United States like internet or cyber infrastructure. Really, we have no idea. Well, at least you and I don't know. I'm sure the federal government like has a pretty good picture of what could happen, and I think it's a lot worse than we think it could be.
Really? What do you think the full extent of their like offensive capabilities are?
Uh, like cripple power grids, like take down large sections of the financial system and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because our financial system is very, it's a lot of Excel spreadsheets and COBOL running on mainframes from like 1980. It's very old, and not many people know how it works anymore because they all retired. So it's like really like held together with spit and duct tape, um, and it hasn't been stress tested in that way ever, as far as I know.
That
So
sounds encouraging.
that's kind of why crypto is like kind of spurring people to. I mean, more or less, it's forcing the financial system to evolve, basically, because now they're realizing we can't compete with these new systems that are decentralized, and we're using this like 1980 mainframe. So that's like one of the other things that it's not going to take over banking, I don't think, but it's forcing the banks to like grow and move a little bit faster than they were originally, because before it's kind of like status quo. Like same thing with Tesla and electric cars. Like the big oil companies, they want us to, they don't they don't want cars to keep getting more efficient because they'll lose money. So they have no incentive to really like change the way we transport ourselves. But now that
Dude,
electric
states make
cars,
you pay an electric car tax too, because you're not buying gas.
I did
So you
not
can't
know
get
that.
taxed on that. Yeah, because I was asking my dad about it, and he was saying that. Well, I made the argument, that like a Tesla would save you this much on gas and yada yada yada. He's like, yeah, but that doesn't take into account the tax that you have to pay on it because they're not getting the gas money from you. So it's kind of fucking bullshit in the end. You're not even able to like make that option in some states with financial good conscience.
Yeah, I mean right now, but like let's say we really fuck up and we start doing all this green shit, like all the EU states, and gas is like $7 a gallon. You think $7 a gallon gas is gonna be cheaper than paying the gas tax on a Tesla? I doubt it.
Yeah,
That's
probably
that's one of the
not.
other reasons why I think Putin might keep going, because a lot of the EU is like dependent on Russian oil. So he turned that shit off, and they can't run their infrastructure on like solar and wind like they thought they could because they wanted to be green. But now they basically shot themselves in the foot, which is
Yeah.
pretty depressing. Because like that Keystone pipeline that was like starting at the end of Trump's administration, like Biden shut it down, and that's why we're buying fucking Russian oil. So like we're still using the same amount of carbon. It's just not directly attributed to us. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess virtue, like we're virtue signaling basically. And we could have had energy independence probably with that pipeline. So it's hard to say though, but
Sad, dude.
it's those kind of things that like, I mean, I know like being green and all that stuff is good, but you got to be pragmatic too and realize that your adversaries don't care at all whether you're whether you're climate friendly or not. They're going to do what they're going to do, and regardless of the consequences, which is exactly what Putin's doing right now. So
Yeah, I would I mean I know nothing about global politics or war, but I would be surprised if he had the balls on him to just straight up launch an invasion past Ukraine and start World War Three.
yeah, that's what I said earlier. Is like it depends on how crazy he actually is. If he's just
Yeah,
like
but I mean,
normal Russian crazy, then he'll probably stop at Ukraine. If he's like the next like it, terrible dude crazy, he'll keep going. But we just don't know yet. We have to wait and see. It's interesting
so
though
what?
because there's like protests in Moscow and St. Petersburg and all those places, like huge protests. So
Really? I didn't know that either. See, the Russian media's playing it up like all the Russians are on board with it.
yeah, I'm on the secret Twitter whatever that shows me all the what's actually happening. And a lot of
Oh
stuff I
yeah.
see like before it shows up on like CNN or Fox or whatever. So
Damn, dude. Was that
that's
the
that's why I've been
fire
able
hose
to
you
like
described?
that's why I've been like been able to like extemporaneously talk about this for like 15 minutes because I've been like totally dialed in like as soon as it started.
Yeah. No, dude. I has the Ghost of Kiev been debunked yet?
I'm gonna believe just because it's a badass story. Like I don't
It
give a
is a
fuck.
badass
I don't give
story,
a fuck
dude.
if it's real or not. I'm gonna believe. Sometimes
Someone tried telling me last night that it got debunked, and I was like,
I don't
"Give me
give
your
a fuck.
source,"
I
and
don't
they
care.
didn't give me a source.
I don't care if it's debunked or not. It's real in my subjective view of the world. So
Fake news, Hillary.
speaking of speaking of heroes, the president of Ukraine, man, he's a
Dude, he
badass. He's a
kind of a
badass,
tad.
certified badass, man.
But I still don't know what to believe. Like I've never met the guy, and like they can make these pictures, and I don't know. I want to believe he's a badass, so I'm gonna believe that.
I
But
mean, like we gave him, like the United States gave him a chance to evacuate the country, and he said no. Like he's going down with the ship, man.
yeah,
Which ultimately is like a world or a citizen of a government. Like you need to see that because it shows that the leader always has the government's best, or excuse me, the country's best interest in mind. Like he's not swayed by his own personal safety or anything. So
yeah, no, definitely.
but
And
yeah, he'll probably be dead in he'll
unfortunately,
probably be dead in a few days. So
I couldn't see I couldn't see Biden doing that. I couldn't really see Trump doing that. I could sort of see him doing it, maybe on Twitter, but then like secretly hiding at Mar-a-Lago.
I don't know,
Couldn't
man. Like
see.
the last like uh combat on United States soil was the Civil War, I think, which is 60 something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was like the last major like combat.
Yeah, unless you count Pearl Harbor or 9/11, I think you're probably right.
But yeah, those weren't like fights though. Those were just like one-sided like beatdowns
Yeah,
basically. And even 9/11, I think that wasn't like a war. That was like a civilian attack. It wasn't a military
it was an inside job,
maneuver.
dude.
Yeah. And then I guess Pearl Harbor, like we were totally caught off guard by, so it was just kind of like
Yeah,
a massacre, basically.
yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I think you would probably be right. Unless actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there have been a few instances of individual cessation, wherein the federal government shows up with tanks to crazy people in Texas or whatever and tells them to stop.
Yeah,
And
but
I
point
think those
being
are
is
technically considered wars.
we haven't had like any major combat on the United States soil in like 150 years or whatever, and one of the reasons like the United States has been so successful is because we're separated by two huge oceans from all the crazy people. So it let us basically become strong and like test out the American experiment for long enough that it actually worked. Because I mean, imagine if we were in the EU landmass, we would have been fighting wars this whole time probably because our way of life deeply conflicts with the way of life of a lot of those countries on that side of the globe.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's increasingly becoming pretty homogenous, like between a lot of the US and EU ideals. I think we're both kind of moving towards just like a liberalized kind of society where social media and global connectiveness have kind of expedited shared opinion amongst the people in power.
I agree with that, but like the the like skeleton of America is freedom first and the Bill of Rights, and we have these explicit rights that say you can't, the
Yeah,
government can't do this. And like in Canada, for example, like they, like you saw how quickly it can go the other way. Like they were freezing people's bank accounts, they were shutting down peaceful protests, they were
yes.
silencing people, and like they, even though they're like a Walmart like version of the United States as far as government goes. In their government, as far as I know, they don't have those like Bill of Rights explicitly stated out saying you can't do this, which is, it's really like at the time when they drafted the Bill of Rights, it was a radical idea. It was a deeply radical idea, and there was a large party of people that were against putting the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, because they thought it was like implied. They were like, why do we have to have this um, added? Because it's like obviously here, right? So even then, it was a radical idea, and it still is. So
Yeah. No, I'm on the same page, but I think increasingly the American citizenship is becoming more and more willing to throw these protections to the wayside and allow for government intrusion and their liberties being stifled essentially. And I could see a similar situation happening in America today. Maybe it's just my lack of faith in the government actually sticking true to what's written in the Constitution. But increasingly, it doesn't seem like people care about the Constitution. So that was sort of my point. Um, Being that, like, yeah, there's that skeleton there, and you hope that if you go through the legal system that the judge is going to rule according to the Constitution and everything's going to be black and white. But I think emotions and personal interests have recently perverted that, rather unfortunately.
Well, if you look in the big scheme of history, most empires don't last more than like 300 years, and we're at like 250. So the time of American hegemony might be coming to an end
Oh
soon.
shit. That's
But I mean, on the same token, though, like most huge empires like this don't collapse overnight. It takes like 50 to 70 years. Like the fall of the Roman Empire didn't happen in one day. It happened over like almost like 100 years. I'm pretty sure. So I think we are in decline, but it's just the well, the reason like we became so strong was because at the end of World War II, we had we made like the biggest manufacturing like juggernaut in the entire world,
hmm
and all the major powers were basically decimated, and they like became reliant on United States dollars to do stuff, and that's basically how we positioned ourselves to um, be this powerful for this long. But as we keep devaluing the dollar and other countries become stronger and crypto starts happening and all this stuff, that's going to change. And additionally, like the thing that made us great, like the manufacturing and stuff, we increasingly do less and less of. So
maybe it's
um,
time we find something new.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, we're more and more of a service industry nowadays. I think our most of our money is made in services,
yeah, I think it's like that and like food. Um, but yeah,
like
I
food
mean,
production, agriculture.
we're trying to move chips back here, the Intel fabs in Ohio. That's gonna be huge because right now we get like 70% of our chips from Taiwan or something ridiculous. So
Oh, so yeah, that's probably a good bet to get those back here before that goes down.
yep, and that's another one where like making chips, it's basically like almost like magic because it's these transistors are only like a couple atoms big now. So in order to like get that chemical processes going, you have to have like really expensive equipment, and I don't even know like the full process uh, of how they do it, but I just know that it's incredibly expensive to start a fab.
And what kind of like materials is it? What's the limiting reagent in that step? Is it time or materials or labor? Because isn't there a global chip
I know
shortage?
it's mostly silicon, but there's a lot of other random chemicals you need to induce on the silicon to get it to do what you want, and then like if it gets one piece of dust on it, it's ruined. And then there's like a validation part too, where they have to validate because if there's like one little flaw in the chip, it doesn't work. It needs to be
Yeah.
literally a perfect chip, and every chip they make needs to be perfect. So that's a huge thing. I know the validation's a huge like bottleneck, and I think like getting the well, that's the only one I know for sure. So I haven't really read much about it. I've been studying crypto stuff lately, so
What kind of research have you been doing in the crypto?
it's called zero knowledge proofs. So basically, it's like the next version of cryptography where I can prove to you mathematically that I know something is like secure without revealing any information about it other than that proof, which it's really confusing.
Interesting. So what's the practicality of that technology?
The practicality is it's it's air quotes quantum proof. So a quantum computer can't easily crack that like it can like the modern cryptography systems. Also, it's relatively easier to scale up, so I can make a lot of zero knowledge proofs of something um, once I have the infrastructure built, and I don't have to keep finding new large prime numbers to compute it on.
But you said it's more secure, or is that not what you said?
It is and it isn't. So it's harder to crack a zero knowledge proof, or excuse me, like a zero knowledge like cryptography hash or whatever. But the steps to create that hash are not as secure. So you have to make sure when you're generating the proof that it's airtight. If it leaks
Gotcha.
out, you can generate false proofs because there's a couple steps where you need to like seed it with a certain number. So that's the part that's less secure. But once it gets baked together, it's more secure than
So
modern.
assuming the first steps are kosher, then it's more secure. But if your first steps are taken with not great care, then it has the potential to be significantly less
Yeah, then
secure.
it's literally like free basically because you can generate your own proofs if you have one of the initial numbers that they use. So there's this coin called Zcash, and they generated their like initial chain with zero knowledge proofs. Dude, like it sounds like a fucking movie. They they had 6 people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
None of the people knew anybody else's names. They all were all in pseudonyms. They all went to like Micro Center bot computers separately, never connected it to a wireless thing ever. They didn't connect it to Bluetooth. They wiped the computers clean and put like their own operating system on it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then they used whatever program they had to generate the hash, and then burned it to a CD, destroyed the computers, and like uploaded that CD to like the network separately. All of them did it separately. And the way the initial program was made was such that like if any of these 6 people made a number that was like not um like I don't know the exact math going on, but like they generated hashes such that each of the 6 numbers connected to each other. If any one of those people like messed with that, the whole none of the other CDs would have worked. And
Interesting.
then they started generating the blockchain out of that, which is pretty insane. Like that's how secure the initial part has to be. So basically, the new wave of this technology is that they're trying to figure out how to make it so you don't have to do that when you're generating the initial
Yeah, because that
stuff.
sounds like a few hoops to jump through.
Yeah, because like literally, if one person like was a bad actor in that moment and like spoofed the number, they could control that whole blockchain just by making fake proofs. So yeah, pretty crazy shit. And like the actual math behind it, I still don't fully understand, but that's what I've been studying these past few days.
Interesting.
But definitely once I get the math like down hardcore, I am definitely willing to like break it down for you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about it. So when you say it's more secure, though, is that like what's the metric? Is it more secure than like a basic Ethereum contract?
So modern cryptography basically is based on well, we'll just use the most common protocol. It's called RSA, Revest, Shamir, and Edelman, I think, is the RSA encryption algorithm. Basically, in modern cryptography, they find mathematical operations that are easy to do at the start, but really hard to reverse. So the foundation of the RSA algorithm is that they have 2 big prime numbers, and all they do is multiply them together, which is really easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really easy for a computer to do, especially. So they multiply these 2 prime numbers together and get a third number. And then there's a secret key that fits inside of the third number. And then basically It's really hard to factor the third number into two prime numbers to find the secret key, but it's really easy to multiply those two prime numbers together, like ridiculously easy. But trying to factor that massive number into those two numbers is extremely hard. Like hard as in like 1,000. Like it would take your computer like 1,000 years to do it probably.
Damn.
So yeah, and then the secret key is just um, like a factor of one of those original two numbers, basically. Or there's like more math to it, but that's like the basic tenets of it.
And so that's just because there's like almost like just a shit ton of two prime numbers that could like multiply together to equal the output.
Yes. Yep.
So that you're sat there like, all right, well, which of these infinity numbers is it?
Yep. And like
Interesting.
factoring that huge number into one of those numbers again, yeah, like I said, getting that key from it is like ridiculous. So, for example, when you like send an email or whatever, I mean, let's just say you're sending an email, you have the private key like in your account or whatever, and then the private key is multiplied with some number, and then it's compared to the server's like public key, basically, and then it's decrypted on the way back by the other person's private key.
Hmm. So then if you leak your private key, it just makes the encryption useless.
Yeah, because they can just divide, and then they have the number or the yeah. And
Interesting.
so, but yeah, basically the main tenet, it's easy to multiply, hard to factor. And this new cryptography, it's based off like elliptic curves. So, all right, let me see if I can like explain this to you in
Ooh.
plain terms. So, you know, like the graph of a parabola is just like shaped like a U.
Yes, sir.
So, and you know the graph of like you can flip the graph on its side, so it's like a sideways U, basically.
Yep. I don't remember how to do that with mathematical operations, but yeah, I do know that you can do that.
Yeah. So imagine like a sideways curve like that, but it's kind of shaped uh like an basically it's shaped like a Lululemon logo. It has like a weird divot on it.
Let me look that up. Um. Okay, but it's on its side.
Yeah. So how elliptic curve works
So
is
there's going to be a point where you can draw a line straight on the like y-axis, so
yeah, so
perpendicular to
basically
the x-axis, and it'll cross that function 4 times, correct?
yes.
When you mean the
So
divot, there's that little part where it'll cross it 4 times instead of two.
yeah, well, yeah, you want to look at that, but also like firstly to get that little curve, you need to like have a polynomial, and that's a secret. And then you
Okay.
graph like points p, q, and negative r on it, and then negative r is flipped over to become r on the bottom of the curve. So there's like another layer, and there's a third layer too, where it's computed like over a field. So in conventional math, your number line is from negative infinity to positive infinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
In finite field math, you can choose your number line. So, for example, if I chose my field to be 0 to 10, all of my math operations will wrap around that curve. So, for example, 3 times 5 would be 5 because it goes to 10 and it starts counting back around to 5.
Okay.
So it like fucks up that curve even more. So there's like at least 3 layers of like obscurity between
So
how that
basically, the tenet of that would be is you know the function, an existing function, and then you're just gonna warp that function in 3 ways. That's easy to do, but then once you have the output of it, you don't know how to unwarp it to get the original function.
exactly.
Kind of like if you have an integral, and it's plus c, it's just like sometimes you can't fucking figure out what c is based on the information, so you can't go backwards.
Yep. And there's like there's more to it than that, but that's like my current understanding of it. So
Yeah, that's neat.
yeah, but basically like I know Cloudflare I think is using elliptic curve cryptography to encrypt their stuff, and I think Firefox is too. But that's like the next wave of.
And just to be clear, that was the more secure one that you just gave a TLDR of, and the reason
Yes.
it's more secure is because you can take a function and basically like, if it's graphically displayed, you can move it right, you can move it up, you can move it left, you can flip it over, then you can rotate it 90 degrees and then move it down to
Yeah.
the right and then reflect it over the x-axis and then draw another line and reflect it over that line. And now you have an output function and you know all these things have been done to it, but you don't know to what degree and in what order.
Yeah, and like the important thing to keep track of here is that like those points of intersection on the line, those points represent polynomials. So like it fucks it up even more. So you have this random polynomial with like all these weird big numbers attached to it, and you cannot get back to the original factors, and one of those factors is the
Oh,
key, secret key,
okay.
basically.
So you're saying this figure has arbitrary points that are graphed on it, and then based on where those arbitrary points end up, you graph a new polynomial with those 3 points, and
No,
getting the.
you don't graph a new polynomial. Each point represents a polynomial.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, then that's beyond my understanding, but I think I got the TLDR.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's just like another layer. It's literally you can still think of it graphically, but that's just like another layer of abstraction. So you can see how hard it is to go back from
Yeah.
that way compared to the first way that I told you.
No, that's pretty neat. And that's
Yeah, it's
that's what the
been
boys are working on in the cryptosphere.
yeah,
It's the new tech.
zero knowledge proofs. That's the big thing right now. And then
Very
so
nice.
you instead of like the current thing is like proof of work where you have to hash the whole blockchain. Instead, you just generate this zero knowledge proof, and then you have that concrete mathematical proof that you know it, and then you're good now. You don't have to do the whole proof of work thing. So
Yeah.
that's why it's like the next big thing because it's way less energy intensive and way less time intensive, etc. Because if you want to do like a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain right now, it'll take you probably at least 15 minutes to do it. Whereas
Oh.
this zero knowledge proof, oh, not only would it take you 15 minutes, it would also cost you like $70, the gas fee.
Oh, wow.
Whereas with the zero knowledge proofs, it would take you like maybe a minute or less and cost some order of magnitude less, like a couple dollars or $10 or something. So
Damn, that's actually sounds like pretty big. So that's the practicality of it then.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw a funny tweet the other day. It was some guy screenshotted. I don't even know who it was on Twitter, but it was some like democratic activist organization basically condemning American citizens for having AR-15s at some point in time past. And then recently they tweeted like
Yeah, I
the
saw that. I
Ukrainian
saw that.
government the Ukrainian government has supplied 10,000 automatic rifles to its citizenship. God praise Ukrainians for being so brave.
Yeah. Yep. That's just social media, man.
It is. It do be how it do be. But I'm glad they at least have the sense to give their populace a fighting chance.
I mean, it's like do or die basically. So,
I mean, it really is. Sometimes it comes down to that. And that's always been my argument.
which is pretty sad. I mean, it's sad that like the people of Ukraine have to go through this. Like, there's really no reason that this needs to be happening other than Putin's like deranged like motivations.
Yeah, that's see what a latent thought I have is like all these leaders that came before Putin were kind of like assholes, and if Putin wants to live up to that, and he's got to die sometime. This might be the start of his like final plan to make his mark. But maybe he just like really likes Ukraine. That's where he's gonna stop.
Oh boy, I wish like we go back to that time like 2010 to like 2015 when everything was like normal.
True.
It's like no recession, no Trump, everything was just like normal. Not saying like Trump is good or bad, but like things definitely got weird and different after he was elected for sure. So
Yeah, people people really either like loved that guy or hated that guy.
it's funny because like
So weird.
his election and like campaign is like it's like the epitome of a modern campaign. He was like super active on Twitter. Like he knew that like all publicity is good publicity. Like any publicity is good publicity. Like
Yeah.
he totally leveraged like the modern uh like communication paradigm to win. So, and unfortunately to do that, like you have to take advantage of like how polarizing social media is. So I think like every election from here on out, it's gonna be like a super ugly, polarized, whatever. I mean, not saying that they haven't been in the past, but it just seemed a little. There seemed like to be lines that were invisible lines that people didn't cross as often. But
Yeah, I don't know. The whole fucking political system needs some sort of rework, in my opinion. I think it's crazy that there's just like two parties that it baffles my mind that it's almost split 50-50, like the electoral vote among the populace, where there's so many like different, peoples that have different ideas and ideals depending on where you live and who you are and where you're from and how you're raised and what you believe in, sort of thing, that you would much more expect it to be like 10%, 10%, 5%, 3%, 2, like just a bunch of different people
yeah,
getting the support of like their community, but it's not how it goes.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how how I would fix the government. I think the first thing I would do is probably put like a term limit on senators. Like I probably put like a 5 term limit on a senator. That seems like enough because we have too many senators that are like 90 plus, and it's ridiculous. I I'm pretty sure Chuck Grassley in Iowa is like 90 90. I think. I'm gonna fact check myself
So why does he keep winning re-election?
because he's 88. It's like to it's really hard to beat the incumbent. It's like really hard to beat somebody that's been elected already because they just have that brand already. Oh yeah, so Chuck Grassley's 88, and then the other person that comes to mind, Dianne Feinstein, she is 88 as well. But yeah, they're both 88 years old and they're both a senator. Like that's ridiculous to me.
Yep, that well, I mean, not that I think it's impossible to be that old and contribute productively to like anything, the Senate, the House, or any occupation that you want to, but generally speaking, I would tend to agree with you that it seems like they're probably more in there just because they've been in there and
Yeah,
people are
I think there's
resistant to
like a sweet
change.
spot like ages like 50 to 70 where you have like a lot of life experience but you can still remain sharp. And then I really think that after 70 like you're just not as sharp as you used to be and you're not as articulate as you used to be and I don't know. But then I don't like I don't want to say to put an age limit on it either. It's a hard question.
Yeah, I wish people just had more sense. I mean, it's like I I get that we don't want Donald Trump in office, but why do we have to have a guy that seems like he should be, in a nursing home more so than in front of a microphone more than half the time? Like it's sort of embarrassing that the leader of our country can't like speak publicly. Like that used to be like a requirement for being president.
Yeah, man,
Re-
I don't know.
remember how like when you were learning history, I don't know if the textbooks changed between the time you and I went through school, but I doubt it. They made a big deal about how I believe it was FDR, right? That had like polio or whatever, or some fucker had polio,
Well, no,
and
well, he had polio his whole life. That wasn't the thing that killed him. He was dying.
no, but
His
he
very
wouldn't
last
appear
term,
on
he
TV.
knew he was gonna die.
No, what
Like,
I'm saying is they made a big deal of like the televised nature of the era, the zeitgeist, and him not appearing on TV was like a big like down, in the public view because he looked bad or whatever. And they don't want to see him weak, so
I
they
mean,
didn't
he
put him
was
on
elected
TV.
for 4 terms and like by a landslide each time. So I don't know if
It
it
was
bothered him
someone
that
else.
much.
I don't know who the hell it was.
Oh, okay.
Was it him? It was FDR that had polio. But I don't know if that was I don't know. Either way, there was someone that told us about in history in high school where basically I don't know if he lost the election or lost re-election or whatever, but they wouldn't put him on TV because of some sickness or something. I thought it was FDR with polio, but
I mean, it
uh,
might have been like his very last term. They might have not put him on that much because he was dying.
yeah,
He was just dying in his last term, and like he knew. Truman was going to be the president in a matter of like months after he got elected. So that might have been right, but it was just his third term
Yeah, but essentially the
or
point that
fourth
I'm
term,
trying to
excuse me.
make is there used to be these like kind of unspoken requirements to be president, like, having war experience or being like articulate or, this, that, or the other that we've just kind of like abandoned in recent times because you're forced to pick between, the shiniest of two turds. And it's like, oh, well, I guess this guy's in for 4 years.
Yeah, it's almost like the system is like it's too winner take all. Like you'll do whatever it takes to win because if you don't, you're completely lost.
Yeah, and
So
it's not like, I mean, the president doesn't, control everything when it comes to how government proceedings work, but like it is sort of a disgrace in my eyes that we can only choose really
I mean,
realistically between two people.
between like Trump and Hillary and Trump and Biden, like I was like, God, like this is the best we can do. Like I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I'm saying.
obviously, like each of those leaders had merits in their own way, but I just felt like there's probably some better people that could have been objectively like put in there. But
Yeah, but then you know it's kind of a meme, but it's really kind of reality. If you vote for anyone besides those two, you're literally wasting your vote. Like if you write someone
yeah,
in, they're not going to be president. If you vote for the independent or green or T or whatever party, they're not going to be president either. And I don't think the solution is just like public, not like, oh, this person exists, like consider them. I don't think that's gonna work because people like self-identify with these parties too much.
yeah, it's kind of like a football team almost. Like if you don't root for my team, like you suck. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, and
But
people like winning, so they're not gonna go to the football team that has like no supporters yet.
yeah, and
E-
it's weird. But it's,
yeah,
I mean, it's the best of the worst systems, I guess. So
what's the what's the general? Is it generally a two-party system everywhere else in the world too?
no, well,
I
no,
feel
I
like
would
in
say
Britain
no.
it is.
And in the
It's
UK, it is. It's the Tories and the
Labor's Labor
Labours.
Party.
Yeah, and they're both like they're both like left wing.
Oh, really?
Basically from the United States point of view, yeah, they're basically both. There's one like super left wing and one kind of left wing.
Fog.
I'm pretty sure Australia has multiple parties. Um, and then obviously like China and Russia, they don't have parties. They have like
Yeah.
autocracies,
And,
oligarchies.
and I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but you said it earlier. The thing is, no matter how much things start to suck in America, I think back to the Bill of Rights and I'm like, damn, I appreciate being an American. But then
No,
like,
definitely. Everybody wants to come here.
yeah.
Everybody says it sucks, but they all want to come here. So
But dude, the Walla, the second they take away the Bill of Rights, I am gonna be seeking residence elsewhere. It might be in America, but it might be like in a forest next to a tree with no connection to the outside world.
yeah, I mean, like officially overturning that would require excuse me, would require like 75% of states to ratify it. I think
Yeah,
to
no,
overturn it, which would never
they're
happen.
not
But
gonna, it's not gonna happen.
you
It
never
just
know.
seems like I was saying earlier, it just seems like increasingly people are becoming more and more willing to just ignore what the Constitution says. And it's like kind of,
It's because they don't know
like, I don't
anything.
know.
Like the average
I,
person is really stupid.
I feel like there are issues that, I mean, if we want to get real controversial on the podcast, I feel like there are issues like gun rights and abortion that fall pretty cleanly under liberties protected in the Constitution, unless in the latter one, if you want to make an argument for when like somebody becomes a person. But I don't think scientifically we're able to determine that. So the
I don't know. I
easiest,
personally have not read the like Roe v. Wade like verdict or anything, so I don't know what argument they made to say it was
think it was a
legal.
right to privacy was the argument they made. And I'm
Yeah,
pretty
I
sure
don't know.
most of the people that oppose that decision more so oppose it on the legal grounds versus like the moral grounds,
But
but I
anyways,
could be wrong
those
about
are
that
like to
too.
me those are like football issues. Like they don't really affect stuff on
Okay,
a big
what
scale.
about
Like
But what about gun rights? I mean, that's like literally in the Second Amendment. It
Yeah, but
doesn't say like you're allowed to have guns. It
but
says shall not be infringed.
who is like getting stopped from getting a gun right now? You know what I mean? Like it's not a
I mean, a lot
problem.
of people in like blue states, it's you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get a gun.
Okay, well, why don't I just drive over to the next state and buy some guns and come back?
I think that's illegal. Are you allowed to do that?
I don't know. I don't. I mean, like I said, like for me, those issues don't really bother me as much. Those are just like things to get people like keyed up about. The real issues is like, what are we doing with our oil? What are we doing with other countries? Like, are we printing? How are we printing money? Like, how much money are we like printing? All that shit. Like, that's the issues that I am concerned about because that's what affects everything on a macro scale.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that at least the money printing issue is a bigger one. I mean, we've seen that
And like nobody
play
gets pissed
itself
off
out.
about that. Like people are like, oh, my guns or my abortions or whatever. Like, okay, sure, I don't give a fuck. Like, how much does my gas? Like, am I gonna be spending $150 to fill up my gas tank? Or that's what I'm worried about. But obviously, my opinion doesn't reflect everybody else's opinion. So
I mean, so I agree with that general mindset of not like stressing yourself out over these issues that like realistically you can't control, but that you can have an opinion on. Like, there's no need to lose sleep over having an opinion. But what I would be careful in is like just totally ignoring some of these like maybe more like social issues or broader scale issues because like if you just sit there and ignore it and then like you look back 20 years later when you start caring or whatever, you're like, oh shit, I don't really care about the price of gas anymore because I'm rich now. But you're allowed to kill your 2-year old, you're allowed to do 2-year late term abortions.
I mean, okay,
That doesn't
let's
seem
say that
right.
did happen. Like, how would I have stopped any of those things from happening by myself in the
I don't
intervening
know.
time? Okay.
Exactly. I don't know how you're gonna stop it, but it's like if something, we'll say it's literally something like that, blatantly just gross and wrong, and it's like evolving in front of your eyes. Like you can't just sit there. Like imagine with the knowledge that you know now, you got sent back in time to Nazi Germany, and you were in like the citizenship, being convinced as Hitler was taking over, and people were giving their support to him or against him. Like you can't just sit there and like go with it unless like you're trying to save face and that's your
I
strategy.
mean, okay, the people
You know what I
that
mean?
didn't
Like I don't know what you
the
do.
okay, hold on. The people that like spoke out against it were killed. So it's either
Yeah, that's
go
what I'm
with it or
saying.
be killed. What like out of those two options, what would you do?
I mean, if you got sent back in time with like the knowledge that you have now and like ignoring the butterfly effect and all of this, and it's just like
Yeah,
if you could
just
conclude that without a doubt, if big if huge if here, capitals underlined bold, you were able to stop Hitler or put a movement against him, and this atrocity didn't transcend against the Jews and the Gypsies and everybody during World War II, that would be a good thing. I would die trying. I mean, like you can't. I don't know. I feel like that would be a lot to have in your fucking conscience because everybody else that went along with it, yeah, they went along with it because like they're being swayed and swooned, and maybe some of them know it's the wrong thing, but they don't want to die. But you get sent back with the knowledge of like what actually happened and how atrocious like everything happened. You're gonna think of something like strategically to try to stop it, and you're gonna die for it probably. But like I couldn't have that on my conscience, so truthfully speaking, I would probably try to stop them. Maybe like slip through the security with a gun, or maybe try to start a
I mean,
little
good on you,
uprising. Or
man. But I'm saying like, if you're just like let's say you're like a 30-year-old German man, you have like 3 kids and your wife, and you speak up against the regime, and your family is separated, they're all killed, and you're killed now. Like, I'm just saying, like, it seems easy on paper to make that decision, but like in reality,
that's no,
I,
dude. I just made the distinction between those two scenarios, though. I'm saying yes, if you were in that age without
okay, or
knowledge of what
if you like
happens,
went
and you're
back
a
in
30,
time,
yeah, you're
okay,
a
sure.
30-year-old German man, and you have
I
a
mean,
family.
obviously,
Yes, I
then
can
it's
see how you would go along with it. But if you are Aaron and you get sent back as a guy that doesn't have kids, and you're in Germany and you know what's happening, you know what's about to
I mean,
happen.
sure, that's like obvious then, right? That's like trivial almost. Like obviously you would do that.
Okay, well, I mean that was just the point.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, It's hard to say, but I feel like a lot of people just like to be told what to do. So the vast majority of people
Yeah.
go along with stuff. So
And furthermore, like I said, you get sent back. It's trivial that you're gonna do something, but I think the non-trivial part is what are you gonna do specifically? What are you gonna do? I have no fucking clue, dude. I have no idea. I know I'd do something. I feel it in my gut. I know I'd do something, but I don't know. I have no clue where I'd even start. So like I said, if this were to happen in America, something just atrocious, like you're gonna do something. I don't know what you're gonna do or how big of an impact it's gonna have, but you gotta do something. You know what I mean?
yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we had anything that comes up like that.
Yeah, and and mostly I am with you. I generally think like, good on you, go and do whatever you want. I don't care, generally speaking, how sinful it is. As long as it doesn't affect me, have fun. But when there's things that like, the more and more you loosen like abortion laws and let it get later
Yeah,
and later,
sure.
like
Like,
the more and more you're killing humans. I don't know where the line is of when, two cells become a human. I just, I hedge my bets and my caution is just don't fuck, dude. Put a rubber on. You know what I mean? I'm just hedging my bets. But if you want to go out and kill babies, like, whatever, but murder's not good. So, the further and further that gets from, quote unquote abortion to underlined murder, I'm, generally against that loosening of rules. But generally speaking, I don't really care what you do with your life. But I feel like there is a fine line between like libertarianism and like just not allowing
yeah,
transgressions of like liberties. So, and again, it's super fucking gray.
yeah. It's
Anything
a
political is
tough
super
issue too,
gray.
because like on the other side, like if somebody goes into a coma, like you can keep their body alive for like indefinitely, but when do you pull the plug? You know what I'm saying? It's really
Yeah,
weird.
but
At the beginning and
the
end of life is really strange.
I think those are a bit better because people are allowed to make that decision. Because most people have, DNR, DNRCC, whatever. Their wishes are known.
I mean,
So,
what if it's like, okay, keep me alive as long as possible, but what if I'm on the or like life support for like 5 years, like, and
and
I'm
you
crippling
change
my
your mind, but
family's
not able to communicate
I'm
it.
crippling my like I'm like asleep, like just alive but dead. I don't know. And then
You're,
I'm like crippling my family financially by you know what I mean? It's just really weird. Those beginning and end of life is very strange, and there's really
yeah.
no good
Um.
whatever.
Yeah. I don't know, if my father said, "Yo, keep me alive as long as you can," and then like I kept him alive, and it was going on 5 years, and like I haven't been able to pay for it since the second year. I mean, I would try to honor it as long as I could, but like, eventually, if it
But you
literally
still
became
killed him
impossible, it
though.
becomes
Like you still
impossible.
killed, like, you know what I'm saying? It's weird gray area. Like I don't
Yeah,
know.
but if I did everything I could and it like became impossible due to some extraneous circumstances, like literally the hospital was like, "Yo, we like, man, you're 500 in debt. Like this is where we stop it. We gotta pull the plug, dude." It's like,
But you want to you
no,
like you
don't
want to
do
kill
it. And
like
they
pull the
pull it. It's
plug
like,
and kill your father? Like I
I
don't
don't
know.
think that happens. Is kind of the point, but yeah, I agree. It is a weird gray area. This whole like courses where I mean, I took a little ethics course to satisfy graduation requirements, and it was called pharmacoethics. So specifically, it was like a lot of medical ethical scenarios. But we had whole classes where we would talk about like one specific scenario, and we talked in depth about assisted suicide. Did we talk about abortion? I don't think we talked about abortion. We talked about assisted suicide and a few other ones, but like genetically modifying babies, shit
Yeah.
like that.
And all that stuff is like it's just like there's like no right answer, really. It's
High risk surgeries or experimental surgeries, drugs and stuff. I think for some of them, there's pretty obvious right answers. Like if somebody wants like experimental therapy, give it to them. In my opinion, assisted suicide. If they want to do it and the physician's okay with it, yeah, go ahead. I think it's sinful and I'm not going to partake in it, and you can't force me to kill somebody. But yeah, if they're cool
I
with it,
I disagree with that. Like I think we should do everything in our power to keep the person alive. Like I don't think we should kill old people. I
no,
don't know.
no,
Like
I'm
I think
saying
it's
if someone
wrong.
wants to die, and like they go somewhere where it's legal, and the physician can do that with a clear mind. If they want to do that, go ahead and do it. But I'm not going to partake in that. Is what I'm saying. And
Yeah, I
I
don't know,
don't
but
think.
see how like complicated the issue is. Like we both have these weird opinions about it, and
Yeah,
like it's just there's no right answer. I don't think at least
certainly.
I
I
don't think there
think
is.
personally, there's some issues that I guess I probably just have stronger convictions or have thought about longer that don't seem as complicated to me. But like you said, there's some people that will have the same mentality about that. Like they're damned sure about the issue and they'll have the complete opposite view on it. And it's just like just yeah, like you said, the depth of them.
And like what if you change your mind too? Like, oh man.
So how do you feel about the trolley problem? Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's bullshit. Like, I don't know. I just think it's bullshit. Like, whatever. I don't give a fuck. I'll just do whatever I want if I'm in that trolley. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
What what if it was 10 convicted criminals versus one baby or 10 babies versus one like I don't know, man. I think it's just
No,
bullshit.
I'm
Like
thinking of the simplest one.
who's
Three.
presented with like that situation in real life?
Well, nobody. I think it's just a thought experiment, brother.
That's what I'm saying. Like why should I even like use that like metaphor as like a way to determine how I value a human life?
I don't. I think you're looking too far into it, possibly.
Okay, so in the classical problem, like what like you kill five
The
people or
classical
four people?
problem is the people are equivalent, but it's just the number of people. So it's like five versus one or three versus one, and it's on track to kill the greater number, and you can pull it to kill the lesser number, and they're equivalent people. It's not like the variants are the ones that you've heard and seem to get flustered with, like the oh, what if it's a rapist and five, three pedophiles and two, yeah, no,
I don't
it's
know. I
just
still think it's bullshit. I don't care about the trolley problem personally.
okay, fair enough.
I don't know. It's just because like in freshman year of college we had to read this book. It's called like it's like Justice by Michael Sandel or whatever, and had all these problems in it. I don't know. It just like rubbed me the wrong way. Like ever since I read that book, like trying to think
Dude, they
about.
tried to make us read one of those books, and I didn't read it,
Oh
and I
well,
think it might have been the same one.
but I mean, like I actually had to read it for like a class I took anyway, so I literally had to read it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think philosophy is useful to a certain degree, but there's like a point where it hits reality that I think it's not as useful. But I digress.
I had a patient come into the clinic the other day that was reading what was it was the book on the it looked like the Bible. And I took a look at it and I forget what it said in the front, but it was something stoic or something stoicism. I was like, damn, dude, good for you.
It's probably I don't know.
Might have been the Daily Stoic, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably that. Like the one of the Ryan Holiday books or whatever. Which I mean, those are good, but like I don't know. You gotta take. You can't just take wholesale somebody's philosophy. You gotta.
Yeah,
It's like we
definitely
talked
got to
about, like
integrate it.
the self help books or the networking books. Like you got to take a little bit, change some things, maybe discard some things. Like got to be pragmatic about it. You
Yeah,
should
I
be,
think
I think, at
at the
least.
end of the day, it's all about having your personal brand and then accumulating knowledge to tweak it for the good. I think generally big overhauls to how you do things in life is probably just not an efficient way to see progress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you do like a workout plan, and you discover this whole new workout plan. So you completely stop the old workout plan, and and then you
And
just
you have
keep
no
changing workout
benchmarks.
plans, and you never see any real gains because you're fucking around too much. It's like that. You need to
Exactly.
like slowly adjust and find out what works and doesn't work for you.
Yep. Ooh, in other news, we had that Lord of the Rings podcast last week, and I haven't told the audience. I've told you, but I finished The Hobbit, and I'm currently reading The Fellowship of the Ring. So I'm gonna read Hobbit 1, 2, 3, and then The Silmarillion, and then we'll reconvene on the Lord of the Rings podcast.
All right.
And maybe the series will be out by then. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure. When
think
was
we
that
should do
supposed
it.
to come
Definitely
out?
do it after the first episode of the show comes out, which is
Yeah,
like September 2nd or something.
yeah. I
So
think it was maybe more than enough time then.
yeah, You should be good. And then I need to reread the Silmarillion too. I don't think I need to reread the books though. I think I got those down.
You're not gonna read The Hobbit?
Nah, I don't. The Hobbit's boring, man.
How, dude? It's such a short book, and the adventure like
I know. I
unfolds
mean, I
over.
know what happens. Like, I don't know. I could never get into the Hobbit.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was good.
Look, man, the trilogy was just so good. Like, why would you even need to read the book? Like, the whole 3 movies that kind of
They,
didn't make sense, and there was like
yeah,
weird
they
romance in
didn't.
it. I loved that asterisk. No, I didn't. But
I
I
didn't
know what happened.
understand. Like I didn't actually remember most of The Hobbit, and I didn't realize how like little the movie actually kind of went with the book. Like that
Like, not at
whole
all.
yeah, that whole like white work guy with his ward, like that never happened, and yeah, feels bad that he got the mithril armor in a completely different spot. In a complete, like he got it at the beginning of the freaking journey in the movie, if I remember correctly. They found it in like that troll horde with the 3 trolls that got turned to stone. And then like in the book he finds it at the very end, like Thorin gives it to him from El or not Elfar. Fucking Smaug's horde.
Smog, yeah, or Smog or whatever. But there's I don't know. There's like other good books too, like the Children of Huron. That's a good book.
Is that
Um,
Tolkien?
yeah, it was based off like a chapter in the Silmarillion. Like Christopher Tolkien like collected all of his father's notes about that specific story and like turned it into a book. That one's good. And then there's a couple other books like that like aren't as good, but the Children of Huron was good. And it was kind of like a fucked up story too. So it was a sad ending. No spoil. I mean, like, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it, but yeah, it was a sad ending. So
Yeah, I'll definitely look into those too. I'm interested in some of the stuff outside of the original.
and then there's a couple other ones like the Fall of Gondolin. That one, like the story was interesting, but like the book wasn't that good because it had like a lot of notes in it. It was more like it's almost like a scrapbook, or what's the word I'm looking for here? It was like a little bit of story interspersed with like a lot of notes, which I
Hmm.
didn't really like. And then the other book like that is Baron and Luthien, which was also okay. I think the Children of Huron was by far the best one.
Yeah, I'm interested to get the big picture though. I'll read them all and then because I want to reconvene because our first one was me with a little knowledge, and then I want to get all the knowledge and then come back and we'll have a
Gotcha.
discussion on how we feel about the. We'll do the first episode and then maybe another one like after the whole series. How we feel about it. I think that'd be cool. But
Sounds good, man. I think it's probably like a good stopping point. I don't know. I think we've covered a wide variety of topics.
yep, started on Ukraine, then kind of went in the
Crypto,
American politics, crypto.
ethics, my hatred
Yeah.
of the trolley problem.
So TLDR or not TLDR, to close it out, I guess. What are your predictions? What's your TLDR opinion and then predictions on the Ukraine scenario? Because mine, I think, have changed after talking to you over this show. Like I didn't really know too much about it. I just thought the Ghost of Kiev was pretty cool and
No,
that
the Ghost of
Putin was
Kiev is
being
a
a dick.
badass. I don't know. I think it's probably gonna play out in less than a month, and it's probably gonna be a pretty brutal occupation because the Ukraine people are gonna keep fighting for a long time, even
Yeah.
though they're like conquered. So it's gonna be ugly, I think. But I think the vast majority of it will be concluded within the month or within the next 30 days, rather.
And then does he go on or stop?
I think
And
there's
if
only
he
one.
were
I
to
think
go
there's only
on,
one man that knows that right now, and that's
if he were to go
Vladimir
on, would it be
Putin.
immediately or would he wait?
It would be immediately
Hmm. Interesting. I guess we'll have to see how
because
it plays out.
the longer you wait, the more like your opponents get a better defense, and the like more your finances run out. So you got to
Yeah.
move fast.
All right. Well, let's sign her out, dude. You got any closing remarks?
Um, I don't have it. I don't have anything. I think we're 6 episodes out of 2021, so we're on our way there.
Yeah. I guess we'll end it with some thoughts and prayers for the brother man
Yeah,
and women
and
in Ukraine.
thoughts and prayers to Zelensky and all the Ukrainians. So guess we'll
Yeah.
see you guys next week then.
That guy's a pinnacle leader. Shouts out to him, man.